Lakeland Currents, your public affairs program for North Central Minnesota. Closed captioning is made possible by Bemidji Regional Airport, serving the region with daily flights to Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. More information available at bemidjiairport.org.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Ray Gildow, and welcome to Lakeland Currents, where tonight we have a first. We have never had this magazine on our show in all of our 15 or 16 years in business, and it's pretty exciting for me to introduce to you two of the primary drivers behind the Lake Country Journal. Gary, let's start with you. Who you are and what you do.
My name is Gary Guderian, and I'm the art director with Lake Country Journal, and I'm the one that does all the design, putting it together from start to finish. So I help select the photography, choose the type fonts, help with the layouts for all the different pages. So,
and where are you from originally?
Originally, I grew up down by Glenwood, Minnesota, on a dairy farm. And after graduating from art school in Alec Tech, I moved to Montana, worked for a regional agency for about 10 years before moving back to Minnesota. And actually, Chip Borgenhagen, who started Lake Country Journal, hired me when he was with an agency there at that time. And worked there for about 16 years, and then I kind of worked in the cities for a couple of years, and then came back freelance for 10 years. And then during that freelance time, I started working on the journal through Range Printing, who owns the journal now. And then eventually they kind of hired me on to work on the journal plus other art projects there.
And you do art independent from the magazine, I understand.
Yep, I also am working on painting, trying to get better at it. But
what kind of painting?
Mostly wildlife.
Watercolor?
Wildlife or acrylic is what I kind of
Acrylic?
ended up with doing, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm kind of...
In our February-March issue, 2025, we have an article about Gary, a profile of him as a painter that Jenny Gunsberry's writing, and it features his 5 of his original paintings.
And you are a horsewoman? You have one horse?
I have one horse.
I've always heard you should never have just one because it'll get lonely.
I know. I struggle with that, but
Would you get a donkey because they're pretty
I
easy
know.
to have around.
I've looked at that too. So that may be in the future.
And Tracey, let's talk a little bit about you and what your background is.
Well, I have been a teacher and a writer-editor, but I was doing freelance writing and editing in the Brainerd area back in the 90s. And that's when Chip and Jean Borkenhagen had the vision to start this magazine. So I had the privilege of being one of the 5 on the startup team, getting the magazine going a couple decades ago. Very exciting.
So you were the first editor.
Yeah, the first
and
editor.
And you came back. And now you don't actually live in Brainerd, you live in Princeton, right?
Yeah, we have a cabin in Crosby, so sometimes I work from there. And sometimes I work from home remotely and come in for exciting events like this, talking to you. But yeah.
I think of all of the magazines that have been around in my lifetime, most of them aren't here anymore.
Right.
There are some of the big outdoor news ones, maybe the Bass magazines and some of those that are very specific to a certain part of an industry, but so many magazines, even like Look magazine, Life, I mean, they come out maybe once a year, twice a year with a special, but they're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really gone. And there's been really a huge sea change, hasn't it, in this industry?
Yeah, it's wonderful that we have loyal readers and subscribers and advertisers. People just love it that it's a regional. It's like our magazine. We're telling the stories of our community and people and events and places and businesses and things to do and places to go. And, people really enjoy it. People tell us that they keep back issues, and they're so beautiful. The great photography.
It's just a really, really high-class magazine. Very, very good. The advertising is better than some of the photos you see in some of the papers around the world.
That's right.
But I look at the covers that you have, and it's just absolutely beautiful. High gloss, high quality magazine. What is it that people are going to find inside of this if they buy one? and they're not a subscriber now.
They're going to find stories about what's happening in the area, people, businesses, profiles. You wrote a great story for us on 4 of our local fishing guides. So it's like things, who knew about these great opportunities? We had a story on all the places you can go in the area to find Paul Bunyan statuary. So we called it a Paul Bunyan selfie tour. So,
Well, I think too what we try to do is try to find the story behind the story.
yeah.
Because it's beyond just news or just, it's about this person. It's like, why is this person doing what they're doing? Why did this company start? Why are they, living on this lake? Why did they build this home? That's kind of the key of what we really are trying to find, is that story that people just don't know about. They might be neighbors to these people, but they just don't really know why or what brought them to this point in that story.
If you subscribe to the magazine, how many issues do you get a year?
You get 6 issues a year, every 2 months.
Every
you get
2
an
months?
issue. Yep. So it takes that much just to put them together.
That's right.
How do you decide what's going into the magazine? Do you make that decision, Tracey?
We work together, but we have certain categories. Like every time we try to have one article about a home, an interesting, unusual home. Sometimes they're gorgeous lake homes. Sometimes they're cabins in the woods or do-it-yourself A-frames. We have a wide variety, but every time there's going to be a home article, every time there's a recipe that's something unique that often people create a recipe for us. There's going to be...
Well, we often do like a business profile.
Yeah.
That's typically in there, or a personal profile of somebody.
Yeah.
Art is another thing, art and culture. We'll try to find somebody that either, like music, we did a story on music where we had, instead of just doing the general one, we actually found 4 specific musicians and did kind of a story on each of them.
And then the theater. We had the different people involved in local theater. Yeah.
And, it's just a variety of, people beyond, even though it's called Lake Country Journal, actually talking to a person the other day where, he was talking about a story that didn't have to do anything with the lake. Well, that's really not, not really what we're focusing on. I mean, we have a lot of lake type stories, but I mean, they're just different types of stories from different walks of life that people have that are in this area that maybe don't go on the lake that much or don't live on the lake. So
we have a theme for each issue. And so that's one way we decide which stories. So we had the theme for the October-November 24 was an open door. So, and the lead story was on 3 different businesses in the area that do custom doors, like handmade wood-carved doors. This is a photo of
beautiful door.
A door. Yeah. Felicia Snyderhorn did that story and interviewed some local door makers. In this one, we also had the results of our very first poetry contest. The winners are in here. And then we had poetry reading at CLC, at the Central Lakes College, in collaboration with Verse Like Water, which is, Jeff Johnson runs a visiting poet program there. And he and Donna Solly and Charmaine Donovan were our judges. And Krista Sukup helped organize it with Blue Cottage, her agency. And so we had a big event with the poets coming to read, and really well attended and a lot of fun. And we'll be continuing that with another poetry contest. But the photo contest...
Yeah, the photo contest is really a key and a great way for us to get some great photography.
Yeah.
The people that are willing to submit photos to that.
Is that a once-a-year event?
Yeah.
It takes a year for, that we allow entries for each year. And we usually get about 400
400
entries.
applicants?
entries into
Wow,
it. Yeah.
entries.
And so out of that, we have to
Wow,
cull it
that's a
down
lot.
to
Yeah.
cull
That's
it
a
down
tough
to
decision.
14 winners, which is not easy to do, And then the last couple of years, we've had some photographers as judges that kind of help pick out which ones are the best. And then that's why you get some, you get great covers, we get, great photos to work with in terms of like different stories. But and then our photographers are willing and to work with us with our budget and stuff like that to, because we love to use local photographers, to actually go out and photograph stories. We just had a gal go down to the Foley Mansion this last weekend because it's all decked out for Christmas.
Oh, sure.
And she took pictures of that, so that's going to be in next December,
Yeah.
January issue. So there's some pre-planning on that. But
And I know you have a lot of places, like where I go, I live in Staples, and I go into a lot of the businesses, like the hospital, and I'll see your magazine in the hospital, or I go to the dentist office and I'll see the copy of that in the dentist office. So it's spread out to a large area. How broad an area do you have your subscribers?
Well, they're actually kind of all over the United States, even like Alaska and Hawaii. And in one issue, we created this map, which was kind of cool to kind of show where our magazine is distributed to. So that's kind of a neat little thing to see about how far-reaching it goes and how people will, because we'll get, even like for photo contests, we'll get submissions from Wyoming and Utah and all over the country because they come up to Minnesota. It has to be a Minnesota picture, but they'll come up to Minnesota and photograph
Vacation, maybe, people who have some kind of connection to Lake Country.
They've lived here, moved away, something like that.
Or they visited.
The people in the lakes area, there's a unbelievable collection of resources, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't even know half the people that are here.
Yeah.
I used to do some fish guiding, and I remember one of my customers lived on Gull Lake, and he was a designer for Walt Disney.
Wow.
Right here, and nobody knew it. I don't think his neighbors even knew
that
it.
kind of thing. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So there are quite a few freelance writers out in the area who have their ear to the ground, and like somebody would hear that story and then they would send me an email with a pitch and say, hey, I've got a story. And so all of our writing is done by freelance writers in the area, and they're widely distributed, so they're catching story ideas from all around. Yeah.
So are you the one that has to put the kibosh on it if it's not a very good story?
Well, I might say, how about if we just change this a little bit?
Yeah.
And my daughter, Betsy, is our assistant editor. And so she and I work together, brainstorm the themes, and that's one of the most fun aspects for me, that I get to work with her, because we share a brain kind of, and can come up with fun things. And so we'll both go through the stories, and she'll see things and I'll see things, and we might make some recommendations to the writers. And sometimes we'll come up with an idea and then find a writer. So
How many people do you think in a typical year write for you?
well, there's about 20 articles in each issue. And so in a year, that's maybe 120. Some are small articles and some are larger. And we have maybe a dozen or so writers that write very regularly and are maybe they're professional freelance writers who are always working on articles and always sending ideas or taking assignments. But then there are quite a few who might just write one-time story. Well, so you've written 2 for us, right?
Probably before you came, I wrote some other ones.
Okay, yeah. So there are people like you who might do 1 or 2 in a year, and then maybe there's a year where you wouldn't. So there are a lot of people like that, and then there are the ones who write quite regularly.
That's really interesting, and I think do your writers usually live in the area?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have people that are writing from New York or anything like that?
No, we don't actually, but there might be, we have some snowbirds, some people who are here for part of the year and then elsewhere part of the year. So we have a number of people like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any contests statewide or national that you guys submit the magazine to?
No. That's a good idea, yeah.
I just was
Yeah.
curious. I don't know if such a thing exists.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it seems to me that the quality is there, and
Yeah.
if you could enter it into something. I
I
mean, we
know.
have the book of the year or whatever
Yeah.
it is in the state, you know,
Yeah.
but I didn't know anything
There
about
used
that.
to be something for magazines, but as you say, there are fewer magazines. But I agree. And, because Range Printing owns it and they do it on high quality paper and really great job printing it, yeah, I think it would do well compared to others.
And I know you try to keep the stories close,
Mm-hmm.
because we did a story on the Wildlife Science Center in Stacy.
Yeah.
And I remember you said that's a little bit out of the range, so you wanted to make it a kind of a destination.
Yeah. So we do, like people who might want to do a day trip or a weekend trip, will do something a little outside of the Brainerd Lakes area, maybe a 2-hour drive, something, because people like to go on adventures. Or sometimes we do travel, like people from the area, like Tom Cavanaugh took a group to Italy and did an article on that trip. He took a culinary tour. So we'll do from time to time, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you if did you have a collection of photographers that you work with, Gary, or how does that work?
We have some pretty key core photographers that we use, and they're all local photographers.
Some really good photographers in the
They're
area.
very good
yeah.
photographers,
Yeah.
and we really appreciate what they do for us. There's an occasion where, like a writer, we'll find, somebody will have sometimes even our writers shoot the photography when they're out
Oh,
there.
sure.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
We have a few core photographers that we send out. I've actually had to go out and do some, which is kind of fun
Yeah.
to go do it.
Yeah.
So kind of get to really meet the people and stuff like that.
So if someone's interested in writing for you and they see this program, what do they do?
Send an email to editor@lakecountryjournal.com.
And that would go through
That'd go
for
right to me.
photography too, probably.
Yeah,
huh?
or to, would you have them sent to you, or if they were interested in doing photography?
I think I could just kind of all go through that
Yeah,
one. It's
yeah.
easier to remember.
Just
Okay.
to go through Tracey.
Editor at
Or the editor,
lakecountryjournal.com. Yeah.
Wow.
My email's in the.
How long
It's on
has
the
it-
masthead, yeah.
How long has the magazine been in publication now?
This first issue came out March, April of 1997. So we started working on it. Chip and Jean had to start getting investors and getting things going a year or two before that. So, but that was the very first issue.
And I don't know if we can see that or not, but that's
Yeah.
John Hassler.
Yes,
Was
yeah.
our
And Joe
local,
Platt
and Joe Platt.
Wrote the story.
Oh, Joe wrote the story, okay.
And then a couple months later, Joe Platt was on the cover and John wrote the story.
Ah,
Yeah.
cool.
Very fun.
John was
And-
my neighbor.
That's great. And the entire collection is housed at the Crow Wing County Historical Society.
Oh, okay.
And that's available to the public. So
Okay.
that's the only place I know of where the public has access to the entire collection.
So do you have a walk-in place, any place where somebody could come in if they want to see you, Gary? Or,
Oh, yeah.
Or is it
Range?
just something you'd have to do through a website?
Or through my email.
Yeah.
But
Well, Range Printing is where.
on Madison
basically,
Street.
On Madison Street is where I'm in Brainerd, where I'm housed.
Yeah.
And it's the second generation of owners at Range, I think, that's been
Yeah.
with this, because Steve
Third, I think.
actually,
Third. Sean
I
is
worked
now.
with him
Yeah.
Oh,
way
okay.
back when. And
Okay.
I think it's his son now.
Sean.
Sean that's
Sean
running
and
it now,
Mary, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you got coming up this spring? What are you going to be doing? What's your next series of articles going to be about?
Well, the February-March issue the theme is Whatever the Weather, and that's the one I was mentioning we have Gary's paintings in. And we're announcing the theme for the poetry contest, and the theme is The Sweet Life. And those winners will be published in the October-November 25 issue, and we'll have another public poetry reading, but that will be the theme of the poetry contest and also the theme of that issue. And then the photography contest goes on. The deadline is always October.
We'll be switching out, we'll be announcing the winners of this last
February.
year in the February, March issue.
Yeah.
And then what we do is, because Brainerd Airport, Regional Airport sponsors that, we have these big canvas prints made and they're hung out at the airport. So we'll be switching out.
Oh, so that's where you hang them.
Yes,
So
and
we'll
so
be switching them out there.
yeah, they're there now. The winners from
This
the
last year.
24.
So how many are hanging out there roughly?
14.
All 14 of them?
14,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
The grand prize, first, second, third, and then the finalists.
10 finalists.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's say I've got an idea, Tracey, of an article I want to write. Do I need to kind of send an outline to you as a start?
That would be very helpful, but sometimes people just send the basic core of an idea and then I ask them questions. And I also have an email that I send out that says how we would like the pitch to be, you know, with a little bit of an outline and then saying what would be your source material and where would you get, what would the photos be. So somebody could just reach out to me very briefly. You wouldn't need to have something put together already. And we could go from there.
Roughly how many words per article?
We have 3 sizes. So the largest are the features, and those are always in the middle of the magazine, the feature well without advertising. And those are 1,000 to 1,500 words. And then we have department articles, which are the mid-size, and those are 700 to 900 words. And then we have short reads that are just one-page articles, and those are like 350 to 500 words with 1 or 2 photos. So we have that a range. We also do book reviews.
Really?
And, yeah, so we usually have 1 per issue, and we do local writers or a book that has a local connection. So it might be William Kent Kruger, who is writing about northern Minnesota, and even if he lives in the Twin Cities, we count him as one of ours because his they take place in northern Minnesota. But, you know, Bill Meisner we have, and Jean Cooney, and a lot of, she does murder mysteries with recipes. And there's a play being written about her first murder mystery that the community college will be putting out this spring. And in our February, March issue, we're reviewing her newest book in that series. So, yeah.
I commend you guys because this isn't a huge money-making industry anymore. I mean, even Life and Look and those kind of magazines just come out maybe 6 months, every 6 months or so. So you're doing a lot of this out of the passion for the industry, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you really do.
It's
you
fun.
take pictures, you enjoy taking pictures.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's creative work. It's fun.
Well, I think you got to give a compliment to Range Printing for
Yeah.
investing in it and, you know, keeping it going, because I think that's a big part of why it's be able, you know, to be owned by a local. And
Yeah, they believe that they believe in the community and want to tell the story of the community.
They can order off your website. And what is a year's subscription worth? What does it cost?
Is it
$29.95
$29.95 for 6
Which is
issues?
a pretty good price for the
Yeah.
quality of these. And I've been I think a subscriber, my wife and I, since it started. So we've got almost go all the way back to when Chip and Jean started it.
That's great.
Because Chip used to work at the college where I did too. So
That's right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when you subscribe this, you said you've got readers all around the country, but the core of your readership would be in the area.
Yeah, from basically from Little Falls north to Bemidji,
Walker,
Duluth,
Duluth,
Detroit Lakes, but centered in Brainerd.
Centered in Brainerd, but I mean, I would
Baxter.
say, you know, Minnesota is
Yeah.
the core. We kind of, you know, go into Wisconsin a little bit and Iowa,
Yeah.
you know, as far as like the majority of our subscribers.
And you have very high standards for your photography and for your writing.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to turn down someone?
Well, yes, we don't like
It's okay to say.
We do really want to give our readers the best. So we do work hard at that. Yeah.
And let's see, I've got a couple of things I wanted to ask you here.
The website, we should say.
Yeah, go ahead for that.
lakecountryjournal.com.
And that's how they can subscribe?
Yep.
Okay.
Order, or even just order one issue, or order
really?
a back issue, yeah.
Oh, okay. And is there any, well, they can actually go to local drugstores and find copies too, right?
Yes, Maury's in Staples and in Baxter are always resupplied. Sometimes the store will run out, but
Oh, okay.
but Penny Nelson, who sells our ads, always is sure that those are restocked. So you can always get at
about
Maury's.
someone that is interested in advertising? What do they do?
They could call Penny, and her information is on the masthead. But is it just
It's Penny Nelson.
Penny Nelson? Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah. So
do the people that subscribe as advertisers provide their own photos, or do you have somebody take them?
or you could.
One more time?
If I'm a home builder and I want to do some advertising with you, would I have to provide the photographs, or do you have someone come out and take pictures?
Oh, for the advertisers?
Yeah, yeah.
We've kind of done it both ways. Most of the time, the majority of the time, they're supplied by the advertiser.
Okay.
But there's been a few instances where, with my experience in the
Advertising.
advertising agency for 30, 40 years, I can produce the ads for them. And that's something too, that when an advertiser comes and he wants to advertise, doesn't have an ad, we provide the design without charging them, unless there's like a photo.
We're out
or
of
something.
time, but thanks for jumping on board with us, and it's a great magazine. Keep it going.
All
Thanks.
right, well, thank
You've
you.
been watching Lakeland Currents. I'm Ray Gildow. So long until next time.